Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, AI, Real AI Now. Today, our episode is about AI in automotive and sales and marketing in particular. We have a very special guest. His name is Alex Dogariu. Well, Alex has over 10 years experience in customer management and corporate strategy and artificial intelligence. He's worked at Accenture and also in a startup in dynamic pricing, very successful startup. After that, he moved on to Mercedes-Benz Consulting, where we actually met, Alex, when you were at Mercedes-Benz Consulting. I think you won a couple of awards as a best consulting, awarded by Wirtschaftswoche, an organization in Germany. So, and then I think you moved on to Mercedes-Benz, and now Alex is driving AI and data-driven initiatives at Mercedes-Benz as an executive manager. So welcome, Alex. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Paulo, for having me. Really a pleasure to be here. And as you say, the title is Real AI. It's what's really going on in the world of AI. You know, we don't want to talk about the fairy tales and the Terminators and that crazy stuff, you know, that everybody thinks of when they hear about AI. So your audience is probably practitioners, people who really care about what you actually can do with AI, and that's what I'm looking forward to, like a realistic picture on AI and also an outlook where we go into. Yeah.
Exactly. So our podcast is around real AI now. That's the main focus. That's where the name comes from. We want to be very pragmatic and talk about what is possible today. We also leave room to talk about the future. But there is a lot of hype around AI and a lot of mystification around AI. So our goal is to demystify AI and to actually talk about real use cases where AI actually drives business impact. So I want to ask you, so I really want to make use of your time today, and I would like to suggest that we talk about your experience mostly in AI, in particular in automotive. I understand your focus is sales and marketing mostly, and this is where you have been working in the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years, 2015. So this is 8 years almost. Let's talk a bit about that. And let's start with the story. Could you tell us one success story, one place or something that you're proud of where you and your team applied AI in automotive?
Sure. So my AI journey started in 2015 roundabout, but working I started back in 2011. So there's a couple of years more experience there. One thing that I'm particularly proud of was when we did for Mercedes back in 2017 and 18, a project called Ask Mercedes. That's also the one where we won 2 awards, right. 2 first places for in digitalization as well as marketing and sales. So Ask Mercedes was actually taking care of a real issue. Our products get more and more complex. We are adding layers of digitalization to them, of additional features, buttons and whatnot. Okay, the buttons are disappearing now, it's more and more touch, but still the level of features and complexity is increasing with every new generation of vehicles that come to the market. And that's true for any brand. And our customers, whenever they received the car, often they had features in the car that they did not understand what they are, how to use them, what the benefits are, and they cost a lot of money. I mean, it's not cheap to have a Parktronic, Distronic, active steering pilot. So they would be confused with all the buttons and overwhelmed and just stick to the basics that they used to know from their previous car. And if you think about it, usually you drive a car for around about 3 years if you have a lease. So in 3 years, the world changes for automotive. I mean, we're going now to fully electric in Mercedes-Benz, the company that I work for, and having over-the-air updates with a hyper screen, a huge screen in the car, even for the passenger. on the side and the back seat. So it's really crazy what's going on. And we
Mm-hmm.
developed this application infused with a virtual agent that would be able to explain features of the car by
Mm-hmm.
showing like giving like text explanations as well as videos, pictures, and it could also, you could talk to it, either by recording your voice, like voice interaction as you're used to Alexa or Hey Mercedes in the car, but you could also type it in. And we also added an augmented reality feature to it. So if you
Mm-hmm.
would open up, you would swish down in the app, you could hover over the dashboard, the head unit, the buttons in the center console, on your steering wheel, and would highlight, like it would show you the real car, like augmented reality, and it would highlight, with numbers and little icons, all the features that are in there. You could click them, and then it would open up the chatbot, the virtual assistant, and it would start talking to you, explaining to you the feature. Go into, do you want to know more about how to use it, how to activate it, what the benefits are? So one of the things that a lot of people in the beginning were not familiar with was dynamic select. That's basically a little lever you can in the center console. It used to be there, where you could change the driving mode to sports mode, to comfort,
Mm-hmm.
and people would not know what does it mean, what does it do, so they would ask about those buttons. And
Okay.
that's what we had as a standalone app. We launched it, I don't
So,
know, 10 markets or so, and it was the highest rated app on the App Store for Mercedes-Benz ever.
okay.
It was really
So,
4.8 stars or so. It was really good. Yeah.
sounds great. So, is that an alternative to the manual, like thick to the
You could,
thick book?
yeah, you could say so. I mean, back in the
Yeah.
days, we still had the thick books. By now, you have the digital version in the head unit,
Mm-hmm.
but it made it so much more intuitive
Yeah.
than searching in a not knowing the specific terms like dynamic select, distronic.
Yeah, yeah.
You're
I mean,
overwhelmed as a user.
people don't care, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, don't care about the names of the
No.
technology that the
No.
brand gives it. They say,
How do
"I
I
want
keep the
to."
distance to the
How
car in
do,
front of me? Park the
right?
car for me. Which button shall I push?
Exactly. So I actually drive this car that parks itself, like
Hmm.
parallel parking,
Yeah.
and for like 2 years I haven't used it because I tried a couple of times to find out how it works. I couldn't, and I didn't bother again until then. Until then, I decided, okay, I'm gonna finally find out. But it took me like half an hour to understand, right?
Yeah,
How,
absolutely.
and this is really not. I mean, it was an expensive feature,
Yeah.
an expensive extra, and I haven't used it because the it was so difficult to understand. And I agree with you with all the buttons. And so let's stick to that a little bit. The When you think about, and this is something that you cannot avoid to talk about these days, Tesla, right? You said that cars get more and more complicated and there's more and more buttons. So you enter today a Tesla and you basically have like four buttons and the screen and a couple of handles and the steering wheel, and you enter, let's say, a Mercedes, not and there's still a lot of buttons, right? Everywhere. The dashboard's full of buttons, even though they also have a big screen now, right? So it's really becoming, and it's not only Mercedes doing this. Everyone else, almost except for Tesla, are going. They're adding more and more buttons. They're adding physical buttons and they're adding digital buttons in the screen, right? I mean, I like the approach, obviously, of for obvious reasons, I'm a bit biased here, of the conversational interface, right?
Hmm.
How do you see that conversational interface is going to make the driver's life easier?
Well, first of all, let's start out first of all with the comparison to Tesla. I drove a Tesla last week. So we had a driving event and we were able at my work, to drive different kinds of electric vehicles. And to be honest, this zero button, just having like a centerpiece digital screen with all the buttons, for me, it was a nightmare. It took me 5 minutes to find out how to open up the glove box. I didn't
Okay.
even know that the car had a glove box, but I could tell by looking at it that it's a piece that can open up. And it took me 5 minutes to figure that out.
Okay.
And for example, for the air vents, you could not steer them by pushing buttons or anything. You had to go into the menu, and in the menu, you could then have some like levers and buttons and whatnot to change the airflow and whatnot. Imagine doing that while driving the car. You
No,
can't do it
you can't do that.
unless the car is driving fully autonomous. Then you can play around with all the interface.
Right.
So there is a downside to this simplicity that they have, that they advocate. It's cool on the one hand, but it's sometimes not really feasible. And
Right.
there comes into hand
Well,
your second question.
let me, sorry for interrupting. So
Yeah,
is it a bit an analogy for when, let's say, there were the old smartphones,
right.
like where you could actually have a physical keyboard, you could type your emails very quickly and it was very easy
Not
to use, and
no, I
all
don't.
of a sudden there is the touch phone, the iPhone, and then that became more difficult because it's not the same. The physical button is much easier to handle than a
Well, I don't
than,
agree. Or let's say I don't agree, but I don't think it's the same, because a
okay.
phone, you'd still be looking at it, while you
Yeah.
type, and now you use like the digital keyboard instead of the physical one.
Mhm.
But with a car, you're driving it still. I mean, at
Right.
this point in time, you're still driving. You got to keep your hands on the steering wheel. So any kind of distraction that we have from
Mhm.
driving is a potential issue.
Sure.
So you got to be careful with that, and it's not as with a cell phone where you always, you're on the phone, you look at it. So
So not less buttons is not necessarily better. This is what you're
not
telling
better,
me.
but exactly. But there comes in one thing that you asked, like, is what about the voice interaction? And that's the
Yes.
cool thing, because if we manage to have an intuitive way to steer the car by voice interacting, by gestures, hand gestures, which we can see now, certain kinds of top-end vehicles have that hand gestures, to open the windows, close the windows, open the roof, the rooftop, close it. That's awesome, because that's really like intuitive, like if you dial like this, then you can turn down or up the
Mhm.
volume. I think this is getting really interesting. And the same this is a lot of AI in there.
Right.
Camera detecting hand movements and so forth. And the same goes for voice, like imprinting your voice biometrics so that only you can steer the car and not your kids on the back seat. You have kid too. Mine are starting to talk, so imagine them, going like louder, louder, louder.
Right.
I would go crazy. I would never go on vacation with them ever again.
Start moving their arms around and open,
Yeah,
close the.
open, close the window. So yeah, you got to personalize it and limit it. But this is the hands-free stuff is awesome. I mean, I use it all the time. When
Mhm.
I drive, I use it for navigation, for obvious
Right.
reasons, because typing, the city and everything is just too effortsome. And by now, the voice recognition is super accurate. Also, the how it tries to disambiguate by offering
Mhm.
several options. But it goes deeper than that into car functions. So turn up the heating, turn up the seat heater, turn off the head-up display, turn on the head-on display. Open up the
Mhm.
sunroof. So you start interacting with the car. It's getting more and more a personalized interaction. You start bonding with your car. And that's why also going into the future, I think we're going to see cars developing more character and learning your personality, like
Mhm.
how you talk, what's important to you, um,
Okay.
and I know there's some research on that as well. I don't want to talk about Mercedes, but there is research on that, how we can pick up on certain patterns, how you use the car, and if you give us consent, then that we can personalize that. So,
Mhm.
it's already preheated in winter because that's what you always do. And then when you get to a toll station to pay the fare, it already turns down the window. It opens up the window, so you don't have to push the button to open the window. I
Mhm.
always, when you exit a parking garage, or whenever you're in a toll station, you always have to open up the window. It does that for you. It recognizes, okay, here we go. Um, there there's a necessity to open the window. I'll do that. So I think this is cool stuff,
Okay.
and mixing that in with like a voice interaction, huge convenience add for anybody.
So I'm sticking a bit to success stories, and I can see that you're very passionate about this. So we talked about the experience in the car a bit. So the example that you talked about, Ask Mercedes,
Right.
that's a success story. Now we moved from that into, let's call it, modern interactive experience in the car that replaces buttons with voice and gestures, which actually allow you to interact with the car while you're driving, because you can't start messing with the touch display while you're driving. Um, and so, what is there another success story around the experience in the car that you'd like to talk about?
I think AmbiUX, Mercedes-Benz user experience, or Hey Mercedes, is a huge success. I mean, I think Mercedes was one of the first to launch this virtual assistant in the car, linked to the car functionality. So not just the
Okay.
navigation, but being able to interact with car features. And it was a huge success. It's still to this day, we're perceived as being very innovative, and top notch in terms of technology because of this. So for us,
Okay.
it's super important to push that
So
for Mercedes-Benz. Yeah.
was it Mercedes that got the first license for autonomous driving level? What
I
was the
think so. Level 3 in Germany.
level
Yeah.
three? Yeah,
Yeah. But in
before
very
anybody.
specific. Yeah. Even before, like, I think even before Tesla, so it was on the news. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, autonomous driving. That's a topic. Let's put a pin on that. So, what about marketing, sales and marketing?
Right.
I know that this is a part of your focus, and
Right.
I'd like to touch that point. So, in sales and marketing, is there a success story? I understand that Ask Mercedes is not sales and marketing, even though it could be with marketing. But
Oh, it is because sales and marketing, it doesn't stop when you sold the car.
it's post sales. Yeah.
It's post sales, it's after sales, it's
Yeah.
service. So it's still a part of
Yeah.
marketing and sales in the larger context as we perceive it as Mercedes. So it's still part of that.
So
There's
what?
plenty of other success stories. I mean, we've built voice bots that interact with customers and all that kind of stuff. Some of them are public, some of them are not. I think what we were able to, one of them, which is public, I think, is that we were able to bring down the time that it takes to do like the roadside assistance calls for customers when they have a
Mhm.
breakdown by also employing AI. I can't go very much into detail there as that's an internal use case, but
Mhm.
that was super successful and live in many markets. And
Mhm.
then also we have on our website various kinds of chatbots that interact with customers and help them find product information and book appointments and whatnot. And that's also successful because, I mean, when also with Corona, a lot of people moved now to the digital channels to interact with brands, and
Mhm.
that's of course a challenge because a lot of volume in terms of contact volume has moved from retail, from our stores to digital, which is, if they were shut down during Corona because of restrictions and everything, and health protection,
Mhm.
that's a natural move to the digital world.
Mhm.
And I think this we can take care to a certain extent of that information need that we have by employing chat and voice bots there, and we do that, and it's okay. People use it. I think we can do better as Mercedes, as any brand could do better, but I think it's
Mhm.
okay. It's an additional channel that we offer.
Okay. You and I worked on something like that. Uh,
We did,
we
yes,
did. So,
yeah.
uh,
That company by now. Shall I go into that as well? Yeah,
if you want,
yeah, sure.
it was public, right? So it's maybe
It,
something
it
you should
was
talk about.
it was public. It was public. Yeah. So we were working on several things, but one of them, distinct one, was with Smart. So
Exactly.
Smart is a sub brand of Mercedes, but now belongs to Geely, so it's no longer Mercedes. That's why my team no longer serves that function.
Mhm.
But yeah, so for Smart, we also together with Two Impulse built a quite complex and comprehensive chatbot that was on their website, handling customer requests. And we tried to put in a lot of product information and try to do handover to agents and all that kind of stuff that's necessary for a bot to work. It was quite cool project, and we incorporated it also into a more advanced car configurator back then, but I think that then came in the merger with Geely and everything, so that dropped. Yeah.
That was dropped, but that was also a cool concept.
Yeah.
You could configure your car interacting with a personal assistant, sort of. So instead of clicking buttons, you could just say, "I'd like a red car. I'd like, to me, this, and this are important." So interesting stuff. What about other things other than the digital assistants? Is there in marketing and sales any other success stories that you'd like to mention?
No, I don't want to go so much into my work because here I'm as a private person, so I would
In
drift too
general,
much in general. Yeah.
in
So
general.
I think there's huge success stories. So as I perceive the field right now, maybe a little bit of theory where the whole space is going to.
Yeah.
So I attended yesterday at the University of St. Gallen a Anwender forum, they call it, where we had also CIOs from ZF Friedrichshafen, which is a huge company. I didn't know that, 150,000 employees. And for many other brands and so forth. And they were talking about, how the landscape of automation, intelligent automation is evolving. And basically 3 key features came out. So one was that virtual assistants are on the rise. No matter what the experiences in the past were, especially with Corona, 1/3 of companies is putting a lot of money into that. Telecommunications, banking, they're all going into that, internal as well as external use cases. So that's to stay. The second part was agent augmentation, agent assist. And I think this is something that so far has been neglected to a certain extent. And I'll go into detail what the issues are there. And then the third part was insights. So insight generation and customer contact in marketing campaigns using AI. So that's the third one. And virtual assistants, I think that's chat and voice bots, and there's cool stuff about that. But let's go into the agent augmentation part because it's very narrowly linked to managing unstructured data and that kind of stuff.
So by agent, you mean customer service?
Customer service, sales representatives, sales agents, in retail, online, you name it. Anybody who's in touch with customers. But this could also be an internal shared service center that does HR requests or does billing and accounting. It doesn't matter because it's about handling unstructured data. And so what you can see in newest research, and this is not new, everybody knows that, but usually people who are white collar workers, information workers, they use at least 5 systems, different ones, to manage their daily tasks. Then they spend at least 5 hours a week to search for information, which I think on average, which is quite low. Probably it's even higher for knowledge workers. And then they use another 5 hours to summarize that information. So they spend on average 1 to 2 days a week just to find information and summarize it, while they get terrorized, they working in 5 or more systems. So I know some in retail have 27 systems that they work on.
Wow.
And this is like crazy. A lot of effort and strain there. So AI can help to provide that single sign-on, single task hub, because it understands what you're working on as an agent, whatever incoming requests you receive through email, through chat, through a voice call. It listens into the conversation. It tries to pick the right information, find it by searching for it, providing you the answer, and then triggering tasks in other backend systems.
I can draw a parallel from that to an area where I have more experience, which is insurance. And this is the area where I have the most experience in applying AI. And I can draw a parallel. I see a parallel to that, for example, on agents that are handling claims.
Right.
And in order for them to decide whether this claim should be paid out or not, they also need to look at 5, 6 different systems, contracts, past history, and so on, similar claims. If it's a weather accident, then they need to confirm that the incident actually happened and things like that. So they need to look at a dozen systems sometimes, and they spend their entire day doing this, just kind of consolidating information from different places.
Yeah.
And they also need a sort of a 360 view over a customer or over something so that they don't waste their time looking for things.
And Paulo, you remember back in the day, we tried things like discovery service. We tried several kinds of like explore like on-premise solutions, cloud solutions, Elasticsearch, whatnot, to retrieve the right information and then summarize it. And it never worked quite well. And there we got into something very, very fundamental that's shifting. And I think that will bring mass adoption, which is this large transformer models. It's this large language models. I mean,
Right.
I started experimenting with that privately as well as in business. And I have to say with GPT-3 and
It
also
looks
with,
magic.
it's
It
really
looks like
cool.
magic.
It looks like magic. It does have limitations, but still, if you start working with it, wow, what can you do with it? I mean, even like if you
No,
think
it's
of
unbelievable. Yeah.
OpenAI, I don't know if you have worked with Codex. So Codex is basically you can use it to have it explain to you old code, and it would be able to, legacy code that nobody understands. It would understand the logic behind it, explain it to you, or you can use it to just talk to it, and it would start coding for you. So it
Yeah.
writes code or explains code. And for example, one application that we did, we had like that I toyed around with as well, also privately, was that we had a lot of information. We very nested information. We made it flat, put it into a table, and then you would have questions that would not be specific for one data point, but they would stretch across several categories and so forth. So super hard to do a query on that, because you have multiple
Yeah.
queries, you got to put them together. And so what you can do is just like with Jeopardy, you write the intent, what you want, using OpenAI, and then have Codex like Jeopardy write the right question to it, the right query to it
Okay.
to ask the SQL database. And that's magic. It works. It's unbelievable. The
it
same the
it
same
looks
go.
like magic. Yeah.
It looks like magic. Same goes with the
Yeah.
embeddings. When we try to from if you have a lot of text and you want to retrieve information, and it like knowledge workers, we have OneNote, we have SharePoint, we have Confluence, some documentation, some Wikipedia, social intranet, Word files, PowerPoints, you name it. So our knowledge is everywhere. But you can take all that, just extract the data, and then without a lot of labeling or anything, dump it, do the
Right.
embeddings. Embeddings basically you have the
Yeah.
vector length and where it's pointing with OpenAI or GPT-3, and then you have a inquiry, and it just picks up the right tokens out of it. It
Yeah.
tokenizes everything, picks up the right tokens, and does a summarization on that. And it's just like, wow, a human being could have written that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Sometimes it's better than what a human being does.
absolutely, it's
Sometimes it's
amazing.
not. So that's the
You got to
yeah.
figure out. There's marginal edge cases that get tough, but in general, I think
It works most of the time.
yeah.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
if you combine it with the old school tools like NLU and entity extraction and whatnot, you can build
It's powerful.
pipelines, knowledge worker pipelines that
Right.
don't waste 1 or 2 days a week anymore on finding information and summarizing it. Don't waste thousands of euros on training your agents. Provide them with a system that extracts in real time the right information, summarizes it for their specific audience. And you can do that for lawyers, you can do that for accounting, you can do that for engineers. It doesn't matter. So that's the future where
Again,
we're heading to. It's
yeah,
crazy.
it is quite interesting. It's very exciting, and especially these transformers, this new artificial network architecture, if you
Yeah.
will, it is going to be quite disruptive. I agree with you. I can draw another parallel. Last week I was speaking at the AI Guild in Berlin,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe you're a member of too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was this event Data Lift last week, and I was presenting a case where we used the combination of the techniques you just talked about. We used the combination of semantic search with transformer architecture and but also intent classification that is typically used on chatbots, and data, we call it data-driven entity extraction.
Mm-hmm.
We use the combination of all of those to create an experience that allows a shopper, a clothing shopper, to find what they're looking for in a catalog with a few million items. So I can say, okay, I would like to. I'm looking for some running shoes to run in the dirt outside, right? And basically the conversational AI, sort of the experience, tries to figure out what do you mean and looks up for items in the catalog. Of course, transforming this question into a query on your product catalog is where the magic is, but it's exactly what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
you try um, to 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 transform an intention or something that a person says, which is not it's not obvious what the person means. I want to run outside in the dirt,
Yeah.
right? So this person is actually looking for shoes, for running shoes, right? It's a product in the catalog. It could be, or maybe a shirt, right?
It's
And this is
unbelievable. I get goosebumps when I hear it because you know what my sensation is when we started
right.
out with it, there was this AI hype starting somewhere about 2013, 14, I don't know, 12,
But
13,
this
14.
stuff didn't exist yet.
Yeah, but that
Yeah.
back then we had this huge expectations and we came into this Gartner's hype cycle into the trough of delusion, and we're like, oh, this sucks. It doesn't work, and oh, we're trying and everything. And now I think that people are underestimating it. People are now like, oh, this is
This doesn't work.
virtual
Right.
assistants don't work. They're not smart enough and everything. But I've seen virtual assistants using Wolfram Alpha for generalized knowledge, using like this large transformer networks for giving emotions and everything. And hell yeah, that's another level of
Yeah.
smart, you know.
It reached the point where even this there was this Google engineer who
Yeah,
claimed that that this AI was sentient,
yeah,
and which is not yet the case, but it makes you wonder: is the AI is the AI able to pass the Turing test
yeah.
now? And we are almost there. Actually, it
It,
doesn't mean it's sentient, but
yeah.
it can pass the Turing test, and that's going to be very soon.
I heard an interview with that guy on the drive to St. Gallen yesterday. I listened
Mhm.
to it in the car, 10-minute interview. And I think he did a smart thing. He's in the AI ethics department of Google, but I don't know. I think they let go of him or suspended him. However, he said that everybody at Google cares, but the policies are made in a way that the policies drive what's built into the products, but everybody cares about AI ethics. And he said the issue is not so much that because we're not there yet that it's sentient, but he used that to get attention, to
Yeah,
do
exactly.
another thing, to tell people, look, this technology is getting so advanced that humans could be easily fooled that it's a human being talking to you, and the
Exactly.
people who write the rules, the values, what these things think, is just a few people behind closed doors.
Mhm.
So somebody has like the most powerful thing on earth, like an AI that can talk like a human. In the future, if you look at avatars, even look like a human. And the way it thinks and acts and what it perceives to be right and wrong, what it perceives to be, um, inclusive or exclusive and whatnot, is something that only a few people decide behind closed doors. And
Mhm.
that narrows, the scope.
Right.
So he said there's a new way of colonization going on, where he said, like, we build the systems and then we roll them out in mass to all sorts of continents across the globe, but the data that they're built on and the mindset is from Western culture. So all other cultures need to adapt to our mindset because we force this super intelligent thing systems onto them. And
Mhm.
it's only a few people who decide what's right and what's wrong. So that
Right.
I think he was smart in doing something. It's just
Raising the
like,
flag.
yeah,
Mm,
it's
yeah.
like claiming we have UFOs. We got aliens. You just think about climate stuff, or I don't know.
Right.
As a people get together, there's a
I
common enemy. It's a joke. It's not real, or there's no proof for that. But it's so interesting that people pick it up and then talk about the thing that's really bugging him, which was,
well, I tend to agree with you. For me, it's
yeah,
hard to believe that he believes that this thing is sentient. I
yeah,
don't believe that he does, but I believe that his intention was to raise the flag and to say,
right,
look, there's something dangerous here.
yeah.
If we don't regulate it, if we don't pay attention to what we're doing, this we can start fooling people, and maybe they're already doing that. We just don't even realize.
You heard that
And
Berlin example, right? Where the Bürgermeister from Berlin, what's it called in English? The mayor,
Hmm.
Giffey, she had an interview with Klitschko from the mayor of Kiev, but it
Hmm.
was not real. It was a deep fake. It
Okay.
wasn't him, but they only realized it, I don't know how much minutes into the conversation, but they got as far as to have an appointment with her, scheduling it, having an official, and it was streamed and everything. And then only when
Okay.
he
Uh,
started asking weird
really?
questions. Yeah, it
Okay.
was in the newspapers all over the
Was
place.
was this like hackers or
I don't know who was
maybe
behind it,
government sponsored
but
hackers?
Klitschko said it wasn't him who gave the interview. Maybe it's
Wow.
debunked by now, and maybe, but this is what the last info I had was that it was a deep fake, and she couldn't
Okay.
tell the difference, right?
Well, yeah, that's so we are getting into ethics. I think we could have a whole episode just on ethics. Getting back um, to automotive
Right.
and to so we talked about experience in the car. We talked about sales and marketing. Also, the power of augmenting intelligence, using augmenting the intelligence of knowledge workers and customer service agents and so on, using this new exciting technology of transformers. In summary, I'm trying to summarize it now. Other than that, and this is really powerful, I'm not diminishing it, but other than that, what do you see happening in the next 2 years in AI that will affect, for example, either the driving experience or the customer contact experience in automotive?
Right.
Where do you see the trends?
So my personal opinion is that in driving, we're going to see a creeping forward of like slowly, step by step, also to gain some experience with autonomous driving. This is on the move. It's going to happen. That's for
Right.
sure. And I think this is going to advance. And then the second thing is that I personally think is going to happen, that we're going to automate more and more the interaction that we have with the product by using voice, as well as hand gestures. And then in terms of marketing and sales, I think we're going to see more and more of this hyper personalization and hyper
Mhm.
automation.
Okay.
And
I I personally cannot wait for autonomous driving. I
same
like
here.
driving. I like
Yeah.
driving, but for example, I don't like driving on German motorways because
Mm.
it's just such a big stress.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I just would like to use the time for doing something else, like working, reading, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because it's just a waste of time just to having to drive and be stressed all the time, paying attention to the
Sure.
crazy drivers.
Sure.
Um, so what is the time scale of that? Like for
Good
like
question.
let's say in Germany, right, which is where we both live. When do you see that we're gonna have real autonomous driving, that you can actually take the hands completely off the steering wheel and just relax while driving from Munich to Berlin?
Uh, Honestly, I can't answer that because it's a question also of insurance. And as we've heard, I think it was Markus Schäfer also in the news in the
Mm-hmm.
Tagesschau in Germany. He said that it's the first time that while you drive autonomously, I think in that sense the OEM takes on is responsible. So
So
that's
the car manufacturer
I
or
think so.
this or the software provider.
No, I think that the car manufacturer,
Yeah.
because they provide the car. As said, I'm
But
not so
that's a solution. That's a solution in insurance. That's true. That's
Yeah,
where
but
I think
it's a huge risk that you take on, because you never know how
yeah.
the circumstances might be, and then there's this ethical question. So I'm not really deep into that, into autonomous driving. I know
Mhm.
about it, but it's not my core topic. So
Yeah.
honestly, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I think we're going to see a moving forward year on year. And
Mhm.
honestly, probably in 5 years or so, I'm sure that we're going to see level 4 autonomous driving on our highways. So that there's going to
Level
be
4 for our listeners. What does it mean?
it means that you can take off the hands of the steering wheel and you can do whatever you want to. You don't have to. You can watch a movie, but for example, right? And you don't
Mhm.
have to look at the road. With level 3, you can take off the hands. You can do something else, but whenever it prompts you to put the hands back on the steering wheel, you have to do it. Level 5 is in every circumstance, no matter what happens. If it's at nighttime, daytime, country road, city, and I think level 4 will be applied to certain kinds of manageable like environments, like the high,
Motorways.
like
Yeah.
motorways, where you can predict what's going on, and it's it's not that unpredictable as a city environment. So I think this is what we're going to see in the next 5 years or so, move forward, advance slowly but surely.
The problem of autonomous driving is really human drivers, isn't it?
It is, because they're unpredictable. I mean, somebody can
Yeah.
be drunk, somebody can have an irrational. I mean, we experienced it all ourselves. Yeah. So
But
this will advance.
what if, I mean, what if all cars were connected, right? All cars, even the cars driven by humans. So there are the cars driven by humans, the cars driven by software, and the hybrid thing. But if all cars were connected to the same data kind of hub, all cars knew where all cars are at this important in time. So this would make everything safer, wouldn't it? Like a car could really advise a driver, look, don't do that because there's a car driving, just taking over at 200 kilometers an hour. So you can't switch lanes right now, for example.
I read some interesting articles about that, like how you can put all cars, hook them up and have them communicate in a network. There's the same for suppliers. Like if you think about Catena X, which is just started 2020, that as a consortium, to have that connected supply chain and know each and every part. The same will be for active products, that you have them at some point all connected through the cloud, communicating to each other. So that could be a huge add-on for security, because then you know where each car is, and even if one car behaves irrationally, everybody else surrounding the car knows about it and will act accordingly, reduce speed or keep the distance accordingly and so forth. So
or a car could block a driver's decision saying, look, this is not safe, I'm not going to let you do that, for example.
There was a thought where somebody, I don't know who it was, from legislation, they said that at some point in the future, probably driving a car will no longer be allowed, because the dangers of doing accidents and whatnot is too high. So
I agree.
At some point it's going to be like all fully autonomous. It's a pity, because it's fun to drive a nice car, but as you said,
we can create environments for that, where people drive cars for fun.
Yeah, but I want to drive it, I want to have that freedom, not be I personally, I'm a freedom maximalist, so I want to have that freedom of choice, and not like, because then I can sit in a train, that's on fixed tracks.
What if your freedom puts other people at danger? So this is a bit like the discussion of the guns, right? So
my freedom ends where I put somebody else in risk. But you can, I mean, there's always risk associated with it. I can hit somebody with a bike as well, and there's dangerous accidents with that. So I want to say you can limit the risk, and I think we're on a good track there. We will improve, but still, I think there's a trade-off between freedom, individual freedom to move wherever you want to at any given time, and I appreciate that. I think that was a huge add-on to our convenience and personal liberties. Like, it enabled us so much in advancing as a species, as a society, to have that free movement. So I don't want to lose that. Yes, we can make it more secure, but I don't want to live in a security state where every step that I make is governed and fully autonomous and measured. And there needs to be a balance between that. So yeah,
preserve some individuality.
Yes. I would advocate for that within the limitations of not harming other people. Yeah, but I have, for example, what I have in my car is like this pre-save, so an active brake assist. So if it realizes that I might have a collision, it would proactively brake, and
that's good.
Flash. That's awesome. That's adding a security
layer. Or warn you if you're about to do something dangerous.
Exactly, and I have no problem in a car figuring out this is a dangerous situation, and I'm judging it wrongly as a human, and it adding additional security actions to my actions,
actually maybe even stopping you from doing something that is
overriding what I do. I can't run over that red light. It figures out there's a red light, and if I don't brake by a distance by 30 meters, it
stops for you.
it stops for me. I think this is awesome. This is a level of
Yeah,
security where you and me both can agree. But I
yeah.
don't want to be completely controlled, you know.
Forbidden from driving.
Yeah.
Well, I tend to agree. But I mean, I tend to agree, and I think I'm also a liberalist. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I think that people should have some liberty to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I see all the craziness in the motorways and on the roads, and I'd like to see an end to that because people, it's just too dangerous, and it's a big surprise that so many. I mean, I you would think there would be a lot more accidents than actually are,
Yeah.
because people behave crazy. So it's a chaotic system that somehow works, but it's scary.
It's scary. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, one good example is a lot of accidents happen because of people not keeping the distance. So with
yeah,
this distronic and that kind of features, you could easily prevent that. You know, you just
no,
don't let people, you know, on the highway, especially on the motorway, get too close. You know, that the car won't let you get closer than X meters in front of your car. It's an easy
certain speed.
function. Depending on your speed, your velocity, you're not it won't allow you
No,
to get closer. So
no.
and I can think of a reason why this shouldn't be implemented. You know, if the car
Okay.
has that feature, you could make it mandatory at some point. So yeah, we'll see.
All right. We are, I believe, running out of time.
It's a
So
pity. We'd
it's a
have so
pity.
much. We should talk so much more about, you know,
We have
sentiment
to do a
analysis, avatars. I'd love to talk about that.
we
How
have to do a sequel then.
we have to do a sequel. We have to do a
Yeah.
sequel. Agreed. And then
Uh,
get even more technical, more nerdy. I'd love to get with you more nerdy. I mean, you're a machine learning engineer. You know that stuff even better than I
I
do.
used to be, let's say.
Now you're running a company,
Yes, I
but
used to be.
still are.
I
Yeah.
still read about that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anything else you'd like to add, Alex, before we end the episode for today?
I think a lot of people are totally underestimating the impact of hyper automation using conversational AI in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
They're all caught up in the trough of delusion, being disappointed with the first chatbot generation, and they don't see what's coming. And it will come as a surprise to them. It's going to be a competitive advantage. So I think people who don't invest in it now,
Mhm.
and was one term that I loved was citizen developers. Like, we're going to see more and more low code interfaces where people who understand the processes and what's going on in each and every department, not just sales and marketing, that those people will be enabled to automate
Mhm.
using these tools. Like no code interfaces is citizen developers, and it takes time to educate people. If
Right.
you don't start now as a company, and don't look at that, I think you're going to have a problem 5 years from now.
Okay.
Your cost base will just be totally off.
That's music to my ears.
Yeah.
I totally agree, and I believe that this is the way to go to many companies, especially when it comes to knowledge workers, or people who use their expertise to work through paperwork, or nowadays to like kind of use a multitude of different IT systems.
May I
uh,
give you a last
this
sentence?
job is going to be their job is most likely going to be automated in the last 5 to 10 years,
Yeah.
and so this is one aspect to it. Companies will do it. The companies that don't do it will go out of business,
Yeah.
and people will need to convert. They will need to start learning their new jobs now. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to give you one last thing. I talked to Meta, formerly Facebook, to
Yeah.
engineers. And one of their managers told me, our job is to make ourselves and our current task obsolete, automated, so we can
Right.
focus on the long-term goals.
Right.
And they said that it's a key metric. It's built into their culture to not focus on immediate returns, but on the long-term vision, 5 to 10 years from now, to build that, to live
Okay.
in. They even
Wow.
have that value, live in the future.
Maybe that's why the company is called Meta now, because
Right.
it's not quite yet there, but they want to
Because
be.
they say that the now, that's got to run. That's you got to do that. That's clear. But your mindset is live in the future, and that's going to be that's where our power as human beings comes in. Being creative, visionary, being engineers. Make your current job obsolete so you can focus on the long term. Build the next generation business. And a lot of companies say, well, but I do traditional business. How does this apply? It will hit you hard.
Maybe
if you don't
it
start.
doesn't. Maybe the business won't exist anymore. That's the point.
You will get bought up.
Right. So thanks again, Alex. It was a pleasure. We definitely have to do a sequel.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Thank you for watching and listening. Don't forget to push the like button below on our video. Don't forget to subscribe our podcast. Thanks again for watching and listening.
Thank you for having me.
See you next time. Bye.